my early days of coding, I did a lot of Scratch. And there's one game that I played a lot called Kilo Rush 3D. Um, so I remade that game in Unity, and as with most of my Unity projects, it turned out much worse. So I started by making like the simple mechanism and like the random where the cubes move. Um, and my one mistake with this thing at the beginning was that I made it 3 blocks wide instead of the actual 4 blocks wide, but it should work anyway. And then as you can see in the hierarchy there, I duplicated the cubes a lot of times. It took me maybe like 10 minutes to just like shift click each one and then control D and then adjust the position. What I thought would be the most difficult was like duplicating the script and adjusting it for each cube. But actually, that was pretty easy. A lot easier than I expected, at least. However, what was much more difficult was figuring out how to put the texture onto the cubes, as you could see me trying to do in the last clip. So basically, I didn't know that you had to drag the texture onto the cube. I thought that you had to drag it like into the inspector window. So I spent maybe like 30-40 minutes trying to figure out how to do that. And it turns out it's so much more simpler than I thought. And then lastly, I added in the player mechanic thing. This is also pretty difficult. I started with adding just like a capsule. But the problem with that was that gravity would not work no matter how many times I changed the rigid body settings. It would just float. I don't even know how to describe like the weird gravity mechanism. So then I switched to a sphere, and it worked for a little bit. But then when I added in the player movement script, it stopped working. So then I found out that I had messed up the Y velocity in the player movement script. So that whole time the capsule would have worked. But then I remembered that it has to be in like a third perspective. So third person. So yeah, I would have had to use a sphere anyway. So yeah, if you want to play it, I'll have the link in the description. So the only things that it's really lacking are the proper movement mechanics. I think the Scratch game uses the mouse to move. I used A and D keys. No. I used the player access raw thing. So that's different. Also, I forgot to add a score, and the game doesn't get harder as you go on. So, minor differences, but, you know. Also, I have no idea how or when the sky turned white there. But I kind of like it. Anyways, that's it for today. Goodbye.